All right, well, welcome to another edition of our Heart Driven Hustle podcast. I am your host, Candace Smiley, and I'm pretty excited for today. Like, I can't even speak, I'm that excited. So my guest today is a woman I have a ton of respect for. And happily, I have to say a big, huge kudos to our host network, the Divas That Care, and to Candace Gish, who got the whole thing started and gave me the gentle nudge, not so gentle nudge, twist of the arm, to make sure that we had these kinds of things happening. So thank you so much to them. I'm excited to be here. So my guest today is a woman who has been, I'm trying to think how I would describe you, Julianne, because you're like fairy godmother. Think fairy godmother, someone who shows up, they have got the magic wand. That's how I would describe my guest today. So if you are someone listening in for the very first time and you find that you like this, you'll be able to connect with Julianne or myself or see some of the other interviews at the Divas That Care, but all of the details will be down below. So make sure that you scroll, like, comment, share. This is the ways that you share with us that you like what we're doing. So we appreciate that. So Julianne, thank you for making time to join me today. I would love it if you could start off by just letting the listeners know who you are and maybe a brief little bio about what you're about. And then I've got a couple of questions that I'm really excited to ask you.
I am a spiritual mentor, life coach, and I get really excited about helping people learn skills, get rid of beliefs so that it can be empowered. Empowered in their voice, empowered in their being, empowered in their life, being an attraction magnet for money and love. And I also enjoy teaching them what our society fails so greatly on in their sexuality.
I was introduced to meeting you through a mutual friend of ours who said I had to go and chat with you. She raved about her experience with you. And you and I had a couple of interactions at that particular time. And then, of course, like most things, life shifts and changes. And all of a sudden, I had much more of a need to connect with you. Now, one of the things that I love the most is that you are all about the balancing of the masculine and the feminine energy. Now, this feels like a very pertinent discussion to be having right now, because balance seems to be something that, well, we're a little unbalanced in the world right now. But what is this feminine energy to you? And I know that for anybody listening, I know that they're probably tweaked a couple of things you said, and don't worry, I'm going to loop back around and make sure we catch those in our conversation. But what is feminine energy?
To me, feminine energy is the amazing inner energy that we have been gifted with from the Creator. We are the creators of life. We are the creators of creativity, believe it or not. And I grew up thinking that feminine was powerless, was, my term is wussy. That means not able to make up your mind, always crying, all those kinds of things. But no, it is a real power, an incredible power. And we've been denied it for centuries. I mean, let's face it, women in Canada got the vote about 100 years ago. So we've come a long ways, but now it's time for us to really look at and embody that other part, that empowering part. And I don't mean power like male dominating power. I mean that inner core strength. I mean that light that shines and creates charisma. Who doesn't want to be a woman who walked into the room and everybody turned and looked at them? It's real.
So I have been really, really blessed by diving into this discovery of unhealed, unknown parts of my own feminine. And I know that a lot of the listeners who are tuned in today are going to be feeling that same sense, or they're on some kind of a journey in that way as well. So thank you for the work that you're doing to really pave the way and help us understand that, because a lot of the information that we've received comes from a male perspective, and there's nothing wrong with the masculine, but it's a feminine energy we're looking to heal. What is this concept that you've got of feminine balance? Because if I think feminine balance, and also I think of women, and we're trying to balance everything. And it's so much more than that when you're talking about feminine balance.
Let me use an analogy. Let's say that the divine spirit or creator or God, or whatever your belief is around that, is represented by a white energy or light or essence. And then the female is represented by a pink energy, essence. And the male is represented by a blue. What I didn't realize for the longest time is that we are, to be totally powerful, we embody all three. So we're not a pink, we're not a blue, we're a lavender. And because of my background, I was super independent and disregarded anything feminine. But I wore high heels, go figure. And so I learned that if I wanted to stay independent, I would be alone. I would not attract a man. Because let's face it, the male genes want to take care, provide, and protect.
Mm-hmm.
I had it handled, all of it. Men said, she doesn't need me. So learning to understand and embody my feminine has been an interesting journey. So what is that balance? Well, if your female is in balance with your masculine, you're not always up here thinking. You're not always up here planning. Your words come out in a different way. So instead of saying, take out the garbage, you'll say, I would just love it if you'd take out the garbage. It's not manipulative, it's just feminine. And we've been told for how long that sugar or honey works better than vinegar. Also, when we as women, and I learned the hard way on this one, come from our masculine, we're always challenging men. And when there is a dissension or upset or argument, and we go into our masculine, it's like two rams fighting with each other. We're never going to resolve it. Mm-hmm. And one of my clients has just told me after a few hours of that kind of, she went away, remembered what I said about dropping home, and left it for half an hour, and they were able to resolve it and talk from their feelings, and the communication was incredible. And that was something that was just learned that morning and applied that evening. And it was a beautiful, beautiful way to anchor in for her that how important that is. Mm-hmm. And there are so many other ways, because when I'm balanced, I'm receptive. And my masculine isn't getting into fear, control, all of that. I'm just receptive. And what happens then, Candace? Want to share?
Magic. That's the magic. And for anybody who is listening in and who I knows I just called you my fairy godmother, that's what's been interesting, is the skills and the tools and this mindset shift has just, it's a game changer. I mean, I was saying to you, the stuff that we've been working through and working on, and the awareness that it creates, right? Because it's all in here already. We just need to be reminded more than we need to be taught or shown or shared a different perspective. And as soon as that begins to happen, it changes everything, absolutely everything. I'm thinking that I've got to introduce you to the guests I had on here before, because we were literally talking about, being entrepreneurial women. And I've interviewed women on this podcast and saying, the sliver of men that would, be willing to date an independent and strong. And I'm thinking, wow, they need to talk to Julianne. And the reason I bring this up is because it's about this balance piece that you were just talking about. So I'm hoping for our listeners, if you're, feeling the same sense that I do, game changer, just total game changer. You mentioned the rocking home, and I don't know that we've got time or space to get into that today. So this is the cliffhanger. If you're a woman and you're wanting to find that balance, to catch a sense of that, this rocking home, this dropping into the home, just get in touch with Julianne. But that's like fairy godmother's magic wand. That's what that is for me. It's amazing. Why do you feel, I love this question, why do you feel our society could benefit from really understanding this concept of feminine balance?
I just think it's crucial. We hear about violence in the homes and how it just, I lived through that. I don't like to hear about that, children going through that kind of thing. And if they were balanced, there wouldn't be that anger.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be an awareness that anger is an emotion given to us by the higher power to tell when our boundaries have been crossed. It's not about control. It's not about the only way to express ourselves. It's just not so many other things, blame, shame, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's simply my boundaries have been crossed. Mm-hmm. And it twigs me, and now I get to respond in a way that says, that doesn't work for me, in however many ways there is to express that.
I think that's been such a huge part of it, because for me, and I think for a lot of my listeners, we've understood, that more sexual feminine energy, right? How to be sexy, because it's portrayed everywhere. But this other element of the receiving part and what that means, I had a chance to share with a friend, I think it was last week, just the power of being receptive, to being open, to being, it's just, anyway. And if I hadn't worked with you, that would have gone over my head. Like I'm trying to, put it into words or explain it. Just go see Julianne. And normally on this podcast, I don't, gently nudge my listeners to go and see you, but it's been profound for me, this last 9 weeks. Not just in, necessarily like to attract relationships or those sorts of things, but understanding this feminine side and taking the time to balance the energies, within myself, has changed everything, like from work, how clients are receiving my interactions with my daughter. It's been like, so for someone who maybe is struggling with things like anxiety and overwhelm, I mean, I think sometimes these are, can I dare say, symptoms? They're the signs that there is an imbalance there. And how amazing that someone like, you has also worked through it. Now, I've had the pleasure, and if somebody wants to head over to your website, there's bits and pieces of your story that you weren't always grounded in your feminine energy, which I think is important. That, it certainly had an effect on me when I went, oh, so you were me. You were working in a male-dominated industry and couldn't understand why some of your ideas weren't received, and some of those challenges, and the shift that was happened for you when you started to embrace this more feminine side. So interesting. This is typically the part in the podcast where I look at my guests and say, is there something on your heart that you'd like to share with someone who's listening, Joanne?
Well, what I also didn't express is that most of us entrepreneurs are attacking social media.
Mm.
We are coming with an energy that is totally male, and we're having cold results.
Mm-hmm.
When approaching anything with a feminine energy, feminine balance, the results are different, aren't they?
Yes.
I would say that most of my clients who have been able to come to balance, their lives have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And they've attracted, if they're entrepreneurs, they've attracted more clients,
Yep.
more opportunities in different ways. They've changed, they've stood up for themselves and said, this way of doing my life is not working for me. I'm going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And they get respect, they get acknowledgement, they get pay raises, they get clients, they get more attentive lovers, they get even a partner if it's been missing. It's the magic that we all have inside of us. It's not me.
No.
It's just learning it. And it's still light.
I think any of our people who watch can probably tell that I am exceptionally grateful to just be sharing space with you today and sharing a little bit of the gift that it's been to work with you. So, Julianne, I want to say a big, huge thank you, and to any of our listeners who got a sense and would want more of this sense and to want to see what that balance could do. I'm going to say embracing that in their lives would make a change. I mean, I'm living proof, and gratefully so, the changes that have come from that. All of Julianne's contact information will be down below, and I would invite you to make sure that you reach out to her and get on the phone. Yesterday, you and I were working on, language for things like the discovery call, and I loved how your question was, what might you need to know about me, and what might I need to know about you? And so just, putting that out there for somebody that maybe is listening today and wants to reach out, that you're pretty good at reaching out and holding hands as they start their journey into this new space. Julianne, anything else you want to leave our listeners with? If not, we'll wrap this one up and carry on.
Well, it's always delightful to share energy with you. Thank you for inviting me. I could go on and on, as you know.
Yes, I know. But I want people to call you and do that so you can share bits and pieces with them.
And it's always just a delight. Thank you.
Thank you. And to our
And I've
listeners,
never been called a fairy godmother.
Oh, well, it just
Thank
fit.
you.
You're in your like bibbidi bobbidi boo outfit today. I don't know. It came out for me, and it feels like magic. It feels like I have been Cinderella. I have been working my tail off. I have been, same thing every day, all the time, wanting different results, seeing that come easily for other people and not understanding why there was a block or a stall or why not me. And then having someone go, and there it is. And it is that simple. It's not easy necessarily. There's certainly releasing and beliefs, but you and I have had the pleasure of sitting there on Zoom and watching the aha moments. Magical stuff. So thank you. And to our listeners, this is your gentle nudge. And thank you again to our hosts, Divas that care. I really appreciate that this platform exists so that we can be chatting and sharing space. Head over, like, comment, share, subscribe. Again, this is the way that you give us a virtual high five and let us know that you're loving what we're doing. Thank you so much, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.